Hello and welcome to the Saturday Morning Patriot Pulpit Podcast. I'm Ryan Sharp. Today I want to bring to your attention an issue that has been in the news but is not nearly prominent enough in the news, a serious issue that even questions what humanity is and where humanity will end up in the end. Will we have humanity? Will it continue to be the same as what we have known to be mankind? Now, the issue I'm referring to today is bioprinting. And you say, well, what is bioprinting? That doesn't even make sense. Well, many of you have been amazed, as I have over the past couple of years, by 3D printing technology. Now, what they do is, if you can imagine printing a piece of paper and, um, you know, when you print on a piece of paper, you're printing a layer of ink. Well, what 3D printers do is they print over and over again. They create layers that build up into a 3D image, and they literally can create houses, they can create objects, they can create anything a person wants to create out of whatever material they want to do it with. They can do that with a printer. Well, since 1988, scientists, primarily from universities, have been working on a technology called bioprinting. That means that they can literally print a human organ. And many people don't even know that this is going on, but they have so perfected this technology that we're now within 1 or 2 years from actually having human beings with artificially created hearts, kidneys, pancreas, even ovaries placed into their body and essentially given a new lease on life. And people say, well, this is sci-fi. You know, this is a pie in the sky idea. This can't possibly be. Folks, it's real. It's here. It's already being done. And in fact, recently they just cleared a major hurdle in the path to actually replicating human organs that can be used in place of existing organs. So one of the biggest challenges they've had is the ability to create a vascular system within the organs. And so they now have the ability to use a hydrogel lung mimicking air sac in which airways deliver oxygen to surrounding blood vessels. They can do this through that bioprinted technology. Now, a lot of this is, above my pay grade, and I wish my cousin was on here to explain how a lot of this works, because he is a chemist, and I also know some doctors that certainly would understand this technology a little better. But my goal here is not to give you a full scientific briefing on how all this works. My goal is to get you involved in this topic. Make sure you understand that it is vital that you get involved in this topic and that you have a say in a formulation in how this topic is dealt with, because what we don't need is the elites and the scientists leading the discussion and then just throwing this on us as humanity and saying, well, here it is. The problem is there's obviously a lot of money to be made, and doctors are all about money, and the healthcare industry is all about making money. And so what is likely to happen is money is going to lead the discussion, and that cannot happen. We need to have input from all sides. Even children can actually give us moral clarity on this discussion. And so before I go any further, I need to give you an idea of how this works and what bioprinting actually is. So I'm going to read a lot of this to you because, again, it's above my pay grade. So, again, bioprinting started in 1988, and they were able to deposit cells using an inkjet printer, and that's kind of how it started. Now, in 1999, the Wake Forest Institute for Regenerative Medicine in North Carolina pioneered several efforts to use a variety of technologies to create artificial organs. Now, the primary raw materials used in bioprinting are stem cells. When I say stem cells, a lot of people immediately think, oh, they have to abort fetuses to do that. Well, they don't in this case. The stem cells are actually taken from the patient's organ that they have to create or build. They're actually taken from them, and they use that graft of the skin cells then to create an entire organ that can replace the defective organ of the person. And so what they do is they create scaffolds, they call it, or the skeletal system on which organ cells can regenerate on. And so if you think of it in terms of, it's hard if you're not a 3D animator, but I understand 3D animation as a filmmaker and understand the process. Engineers certainly understand this, and architects, that you have a structure, okay, that you must create first, and then there is skin or there's cladding that is put on that structure. And this is how cartoons today are made, and any kind of 3D imaging always starts with a structure. And so this bioprinting technology works the same way. They create a scaffold, or a extracellular matrix is what it actually is, on which the skin cells form. It says the teams then seed the matrix with growth promoters and biochemicals that prompt the cells to develop in specific ways. Okay. Now, to make these structures like skin or blood vessels, the lab uses what's called electrospinning, a 3D printing technique that resembles the machines used to spin sugar into cotton candy. Now, bioengineers use this technique to spin a hydrogel polymer at high speeds, forcing the polymer to elongate into long strands of fiber. I don't expect you to get all this or understand it, but I'm giving you a basic, trying to give you an idea of how this works. They then place a thin rod in the center of the machine. The hydrogel fibers adhere to the rod just as fluffy cotton candy attaches to a paper cone. Scientists manipulate the shape of the spongy polymer by varying the voltage until they've mimicked the structure they are creating. Again, don't get wrapped up in the science of it. If you want to go study more about it, that's up to you, but I don't want to bore everybody with science and how this actually works. The bottom line is they now can create kidneys, they can create pancreases, they can create a liver, they can create ears, they can create eye corneas, they can create fingers, they can create basically almost any organ on your body. And again, some of the things that were most difficult to create was the kidneys and the pancreas and the lungs, because obviously there's a very specific function that those things do, and so they now have the ability to do that. So the question is, what does this mean for mankind? And I'm not here today to create a cult that says, oh, we can't have any of this technology. It's all evil. It's all wicked. We got to stay away from it. And I'm not here to say, hey, let's do it. Let's all become artificial robots. What I'm here to do today is to simply present the facts as they are, and to ask you to get involved. That's my call to action today. As you know, my podcasts always have a call to action. And the call to action today is, first of all, to get on your knees before God and to actually pray about this issue, to come to an understanding of this issue and realize that it is here. It is something that's going to affect mankind, and we need to be involved, and we need to be prepared for this, because otherwise we're just going to be like smartphones, thrown into the mix without any idea of how that affects humanity. And we all know smartphones have destroyed humanity in many ways. and that's another topic. So these technologies tend to come and they tend to just bombard us, and nobody really takes the time to reflect on how it affects humanity. So I want to make sure that you're not caught off guard when this comes to pass. And the fact is, they have already done these artificial organs. They have done that with mice and pigs and other animals, and they're awaiting the results right now. And as soon as this becomes viable in those, especially pigs, the very next step will be human beings. So at best, we're 2 years away from this, probably more like a year and a half away from the first human being actually being having an artificial kidney that is totally created by one of these printers. And again, the question is that a viable? Is that something we should engage in as humanity, or is it something we should just say no? We don't want to go down that road, or should we use certain technologies and make sure there's parameters, and we do put stops in through the law that limit the technology? The other question that needs to be discussed is who benefits from this technology. Is it going to remain the property of the creators? So if a private company has enough money and wants to invest in creating these organs, don't they have the right then to benefit financially from that? Which means that basically only Donald Trump and other wealthy individuals will be able to benefit from this technology, which eventually means that you're going to have a superior race of human beings that essentially have a bio clock that can last for eternity, possibly, or probably not, but have a fountain of youth type of life. And then other people that cannot afford these artificial organs continue to die out, and pretty soon you're left with artificially created human beings, and mankind ceases to be. These are the types of discussions we need to have, and I'm not here today to create a dogma one way or the other. My goal today is simply alert you that this is absolutely here, and it's here to stay, and we've got to engage in this topic, and we need to control the narrative and not allow the scientists and the elites to have the moral discussions on this. Churches need to be involved in this. You need to discuss this with your children at the dinner table. See what they think about it. Children often have the best vision for moral clarity because sin has not corrupted them as much as the adult. Now, we're all born into sin, but at the same time, they have not fallen, so to speak, as long as an adult has under the weight of sin. So they often have a lot more moral clarity than adults do. So, for instance, if you ask a kid, is it okay to kill babies because someone says they're, not wanted? Any child, in anywhere, any culture, any country, any race, any child that is presented with a abortion argument is absolutely horrified at the notion that innocent babies can be killed because they're not viable or because they are not needed or wanted. It is absolute horrifying to those children. So the fact is, we know morally it is implanted on every man's heart, the moral law that God created. We know that murder is murder, and so there's no question that abortion is murder and abortion is wrong. So in the same way, we can talk to kids about this issue, and they'll give us an answer, and I think we need to listen to that. I think we need to listen to children. about this issue, because this is a issue that is difficult to understand morally, um, and it's not something that I believe we can just say let's just ban it all, and it's not something that we can just say just let anybody create whatever they want, and sky's the limit on this. I think there needs to be a balance. There needs to be a moral compass and objective here before we unleash this technology. So that's what I'm here to do today. Now, a couple facts. We know that there are millions upon millions of people around the world that are dying of chronic kidney disease, and it costs roughly $48 billion per year in terms of Medicare costs for these individuals. There are 93,000 people currently in the United States that are awaiting a kidney transplant. We know others that I have a great friend now that has lymphoma. I had a grandpa that died of pancreatic cancer. Many of you have suffered losses of individuals based on various kidney diseases and liver disease and all kinds of diseases. So, uh, if there's the idea that somehow they could have been saved with a bioprinted, brand new kidney or whatever, versus having to take that kidney or that part from another living person and put it into their body to survive, versus taking stem cells from their own kidney and then allowing it to generate into a new viable kidney for that person. Um, Obviously that speaks for itself, because those 93,000 people in the U.S. that are currently waiting for kidneys, they wouldn't have to wait any longer. They would be able to have a kidney within whatever the time it is to bioprint the new kidney. Wouldn't have to worry about the blood type because obviously it would be created from their own stem cells. And so those 93,000 people currently waiting would all be essentially, as long as the technology works out, they would be essentially healed from their kidney disease. So is it a moral thing to say that, well, we don't want those people to be healed and we're willing to let them die to just bury this technology? Well, I'm not ready to say that. I'm not ready to throw those people under the bus and say, nope, forget it. They got to wait for a kidney out of another person. So this is a potentially wonderful technology, because again, the idea of having to have donors and wait for donors and have blood and all these other things in order for somebody else to survive, that becomes a thing of the past. And that can be a wonderful thing, I think. But then there's the question, well, what if they're in a car wreck and their entire body is basically mangled and destroyed? Are we going to create feet and legs and arms and fingers and just create a new person, just put a head on it and say it's a human being? That's where this ultimately leads to. And so do we put limits on how much of a person can be in essence created through a bioprinting technology? Are we going to be able to print an entire human being, which is ultimately where this very well could lead, because they are working on brains currently. That's one of the last organs that they're working on. And in fact, they already have the technology to take a microchip and implant the microchip in someone's brain. Typically, they put it roughly back here. This is being used in fighter pilot training, where fighter pilots now will have a microchip on the back of their head, And instead of having to push a button to fire a missile, they can simply think about firing the missile, and the missile will fire. That is sounds sci-fi. It sounds far out there, but this has already come down the pipe. It's already here. They're using that currently in training with fighter pilots. So these are the types of things we need to discuss, and I want everybody involved in the discussion. I don't want just the elites and just people with a seminary degree to get to make these decisions. I want the people to get to make these decisions and to draw the proper conclusions and to put the proper limits, if there needs to be limits, which I think there should be, on these types of things. So, again, it's amazing what they can do now. One of the biggest hurdles was the vascular system and the ability to implant blood vessels and nerve cells, all the things that are needed into this structure. But they now have, as of a year ago, they have figured out how to do that and create a vascular system. So they literally can create lungs, kidneys, the pancreas is one of the most difficult things they've created. They have hearts, and so they've almost mastered the entire human body in terms of bioprinting. And so, yeah, kidney disease, pancreatic cancer, even diabetes could be a thing of the past if we allow this technology to take root. Again, the real discussion is who has control of it. Are we going to allow the people who develop the technology to make millions of dollars off the technology, which would be the American thing to do? Is it like any other patent that you get a patent for the kidney and you have control of that? In essence, you have a monopoly and you can charge $1 billion for a kidney, which means only the wealthy are going to be able to afford these things, which means the wealthy then will be able to live forever and much longer. Of course, naturally, that's going to go to their head, and they're going to believe themselves to be gods, and they're going to wipe out all the little peons that are not able to self-replicate and form new body parts. So, I can't say that's right or wrong. I think a person should be able to profit from their efforts. Now, the fact is, a lot of these technologies, though, are being produced by Wake University, Duke University, and various universities. So we know that they're getting public funding to be able to produce these things. So therefore, if it's publicly funded, then the public needs to benefit from those things. And those colleges should not be benefiting financially by selling those things. They're funded by the public, therefore they need to benefit the public. So I do believe that if you receive public funding to create this technology, then you have an obligation to provide it to the public without the expectation of a profit off of it. And so that brings up universal health care. Again, we know Biden is creating this equality task force, which is a dangerous thing. And in fact, I am going to be talking about that in my next podcast, about what this so-called equality initiative is all about. It's actually a very dangerous thing, and I encourage you to tune in next week. I'll be talking about the bias training, the racial bias and implicit bias training, they call it, that is being pushed by the government, which is a racist thing in itself. So I encourage you to tune in next week where I discuss that. But these questions all kind of begin to meld together, because if we're going to look at it in terms of equality, well, then that means we got to have universal health care, because then they're going to say, well, everybody has to be able to afford these things. I'm not for universal health care. I don't want the government involved in health care. But I believe that if this technology continues to take shape as it is, they're going to use this as a tool to encourage people and to make the argument that this is why we need universal health care, because everybody should be able to have a kidney that needs it, instead of just the wealthy that can afford it. And so they're going to use bioprinting as a weapon in this fight for universal health care. This is why I want you to get involved, because how do we afford these things? Or should we afford these things? Should it be accessible to everyone, or should, again, only the wealthy be able to afford these things? And I don't have all the answers to this. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on this, and I don't think anybody really should be an expert. I think this is something that needs prayerful time and consideration. And seriously, I think children actually should be involved in the discussion. I think they have more moral clarity than most adults, and they can actually share some moral clarity on this issue if we just give them the chance. So, again, my goal today is to just simply say this is happening. It's not sci-fi. You need to engage on this topic. It could have serious repercussions for mankind. It could be a wonderful thing, or it could be absolutely Hitleristic, I guess you would say, to where we're creating an Aryan race, that's perfect. So there's a lot of things that can go really wrong, and there's some things that can go really good with this technology if we just have the discussion. Again, they've created livers. University of Sao Paulo has been able to create the artificial livers, the pancreas, the kidneys, by United Therapeutics, which is an Israel-based coal plant biotechnologies company, among others. Ovaries, even for women with fertility problems, 3D printing ovaries may just give them the chance to get pregnant. And so this came out in 2017. A team from the Northwestern University Feinberg School of Medicine and the McCormick School of Engineering achieved one of the most significant milestones in this field when they 3D printed an artificial ovary and implanted it into a mouse. The mouse then proceeded to get pregnant and give birth to a litter. So, again, this has already happened. These things are done. The cornea of the eye. Newcastle University in the UK successfully created a 3D printed artificial human cornea. Amazing. Bones have been created. In fact, I think bones were one of the first things that was able to be 3D printed. The heart, which is the holy grail of the 3D printing field, they were able to create a heart from Tel Aviv University, and other universities have been able to do it. And again, the vascular system has been one of the biggest difficulties they've had, and they just cracked that. They finally fixed that issue this year, and so there's really nothing holding them back. And it's here, folks. So whether we want to accept it or not, whether we want to have these discussions or not, it is going to affect us, and we should be involved. So that's the point of my podcast today. Again, my call to action is, first of all, get on your knees, get before the Lord, and pray about this issue. Pray about, where's the balance, what we should do. And then simply do some research. There's a lot of information out there that's good information that you can use to actually study this issue, and try to figure this thing out, because it's coming. It's going to be thrown on us the same way smartphones were thrown on us, which have been a disaster for mankind, in my opinion. And this too could be a disaster for mankind if it's not handled correctly. And so I want to get out in front of this issue. I want you to get out in front of the issue and lead the discussion. Go to your universities, go to your civic organizations, and join these discussions. And if they don't have these discussions, create a forum for these discussions. But we need to have these discussions, and we need to figure out where the moral balance is and how to use this to the best benefit we can without destroying mankind forever. And so that's the issue today. Tune in next week again when I'll be discussing implicit bias training and some of the so-called equality initiatives that Biden has just put into effect through executive order. Very dangerous stuff that could create a full communistic country. It's all coming, folks. So I also want to say that if you tuned into my previous podcast where I predicted exactly what Biden would do in his first 100 days, many of those things have already come to pass. And I've been, once again, unfortunately proven to be correct on my predictions of what he would do. He's already done a lot of those things, and he's already in the process of finishing up a lot of the things I said he would do. So, again, if you didn't get to see that podcast, go back and take a look. patriotpulpit.org. That's patriotpulpit.org. And you can look at all my podcasts. I think it would serve you well to take a look at that and to share it with anyone that you can. And as always, I want to give all the credit to the Lord. I ask you to spend time with Him daily. Seek His wisdom on this thing, because this is a way above our pay grade. We need to rely on His wisdom. We need to rely on His word to lead this discussion and to lead us in how we should view this type of thing. And with that, I'm going to sign off here. I, as usual, want to give a lot of credit to Nicholas Smeek, who did a lot of research on this topic today, provided me with a lot of ammunition to present to you today, a lot of facts that I did not know. So, again, a lot of credit to Nicholas Smeek. Please go to patriotpulpit.org, tune in to all the podcasts that I've done, and please, please, please click the donate link and send us $5-10. Send us whatever you can to help us out, because it does take time and effort to put together these podcasts. There's a lot of time spent researching. There's a lot of time spent going over that research and preparing for this podcast. So it is a job, and we can't do it without some donations. So anything you can send our way would be much appreciated. Again, there's a donate link at patriotpulpit.org, and we encourage you to give if you enjoy exactly what I'm saying and want me to be able to continue. So again, tune in next week. We'll talk about implicit bias training, the Equality Initiative, and a lot of the scary stuff that is coming down the pipe that actually may be a fulfillment of the prophecy I made in 2000 regarding the persecution of Christians in this country. It very well could be the beginning phase of that. And so I encourage you to tune into that. And I also, again, go back, look at my previous podcasts, and share these podcasts with everyone you know. This has been the Saturday Morning Patriot Podcast with Ryan Sharp. Thank you, and God bless.